Hi everybody, I'm finally almost finished with my mask orders and I'm finally getting to sew for this channel again. So I'm hoping that in the coming weeks I'll get back up to where I was going with 2 videos a week. But in my last video I showed you how to enlarge a shirt just by letting out the side seams of a flat felled seam on a man's dress shirt. In this video, I'm going to show you how to enlarge a shirt by adding a gusset. And I'm going to use a shirt with a serged seams. So it's a really easy alteration. Just follow the instructions. I go step by step, show you exactly how to do the gusset. And I think it's really going to be easy. And I think you guys are really going to like it. So let's get started. Okay. If you remember my last video, I showed you how to enlarge a shirt just by using the side seams and no gusset. And in that shirt, I showed you that you needed to use a shirt with a flat felled seam. Well, on this alteration, I'm going to use the other shirt, which has a serged seam. If you only have flat felled, it'll still work. You just take it apart like I showed you in that video, and I'll post it in the cards above. You can still use that shirt, but I'm going to show you on a shirt with a serge seam because it just has a small seam allowance. So the first thing we're going to do is take out your hem. I'm going to go like out this far, and the reason why is because when I lay the gusset in, I want to be able to iron out this hem so I can get a correct curve from shirt to gusset to shirt. So it's a nice smooth line. So it'll be easier to hem and you're not going to run into any problems, hopefully. And then you have to decide how far up you want to go. If you're needing width in your shirt, chances are you're going to need it across the chest, which means you're going to need it through the armhole. So take it from the hem all the way up through the armhole, and I'm going to take it up about maybe 4 inches into the armhole, or I'm sorry, 4 inches into the sleeve past the armhole. So this will be about 26 inches from this point all the way down. And the reason why I'm measuring that is because you're going to take your piece of fabric and it needs to be longer than that. And that way I can make sure I have enough to get past the beginning of the opening up here and then far enough down past it so I can create that a nice smooth hemline, if that makes any sense. So if it's going up here, I'm going to take it up about 1.5 inches past this and a couple inches past that. So all I did was I just got a piece of fabric that I had on hand, and this alteration is going to be for an additional 2 inches in the circumference of your shirt. So you're going to divide it by 2, so it's going to be 1 inch on each side plus the seam allowances. So I'll do one side on camera, the other one off camera, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm finished. Now, when you do this, you may want to get a fabric that goes with the shirt that you're altering. It can be something that coordinates, or if you have fabric that will pretty much match, then get something like that. But I'm using white today, so let's just get started on taking this out. Now, as you're taking out the hems, just be careful. If you mess it up, it'll be seen. So because we're not cutting anything, we're not removing anything, it's just taking it apart and putting the additional fabric in. Okay, that should be enough of that. Now, because the side seams are serged, you're going to have a thready mess. So just keep that in mind, because you have to take all those serged threads out. I'm going to see if I can find this one chain here that'll just take this out. Okay, so I took that side seam out, but now it's just all the serged edges. Okay, now that you've taken everything apart, take it to the ironing board and press it out. And this is what mine looks like. I just unfolded everything and pressed it out really good. But I need you to take note of your seam allowance. This seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to have to remember that, because right here where your seam starts opening here, you need to, what's 3/8 and 3/8? 0.75. And you'll need to know that measurement, because we're going to work on the gusset. So for this shirt, we're doing 2 inches, and we're going to do 1 inch on each side. So what you're going to do is, and you can use a pen for this or a pencil. So if you're going to do an inch, hang on. This is a piece of fabric that I folded in half. Okay. Because I want the edges to be the same. From the folded edge, you're going to measure in the 1/2 inch for, that'll make up the inch for the side seam because it's folded. And then I want you to do 3/8 of an inch, which would actually be 7/8 of an inch. So that'll take care of the 1 inch for your gusset plus your seam allowance. So, and I'm going to do this all the way down until you get about 1.5 inches from the end, maybe 1 inch. So just keep doing the same measurement all the way down. And I'm going to start tapering now. So here you want the 3/8 seam allowance, and you're going to mark it. I'm going to bring it down about 1.5 inches. So this is going to be where your seam allowance opens up and the gusset will start in the sleeve. So what we're going to do here is open this up, and right here we're going to put a mark. All right, I just want to make sure that I put that on the fold. From here, we're just going to trim off . We're going to trim off the extra. Now we're going to do this working from the inside, and you'll see right here, I didn't get all these threads cleaned up. That's where the seam allowance or the side seam is. You're going to need to open up more of the serged edge because you want it to be able to kind of lie flat on the seam. Okay, so you can see that's where my seam ended. You'll open it up. Let me put my hand in here, hopefully it'll help. Okay, you can see my finger under there. Right above where it ends, that's where your little dot right there is going to be, because that is the width of your seam allowances, or mine. You'll need to take note of the seam allowance for your shirt. And you'll pin that in place. Only pin through the seam allowance, not the shirt. Now all you're going to do is make sure that center lines up with the center of, between the seams, and just start pinning it in place. And you're going to do this all the way down on both sides. And I recommend that you do it on both sides at the same time, because it can shift and it's really frustrating when it's not right. When you sew down one side and then you realize for some reason on this side there's more shirt or more gusset. It's just easier if you can get everything pinned in place at the same time. And then you're going to keep that same seam allowance width that your shirt already has. So if your shirt is a 1/2 inch, you'll keep the 1/2 inch. If it's a 1/4 inch, you keep the 1/4 inch. Mine is 3/8, so I'm going to keep it at 3/8. And what you're going to do is you'll lay it like this, so you have this, the gusset and the seam allowance, and the rest of the shirt is pushed back over here. And when you sew it, you have to make sure that it doesn't fold up under here. And the reason why I put this dot is because if the dot is placed correctly, it's right on the center where the fabrics meet, and you're going to put your needle at that mark, and you're just going to sew all the way down here, come back up, and you start in the same place, but you'll be working from this side so you can see where the thread ends, and you'll start from here and go down. So right now I'm going to just get all the side seams pinned, and then I'll come back. Okay, we're going to make sure that there are no folds back here. So you'll have to keep your fingers back here to make sure nothing gets underneath. You want to put your needle where that mark is. We're going to do a straight stitch. Now before we get started, just kind of lay out your shirt, make sure there's nothing underneath that's going to get caught, and then you move forward a couple stitches and then back stitch, and then you keep that same distance all the way down the length of your shirt. I can see there's a fold right here underneath my gusset. Now go ahead and fix your shirt as often as you need to, so that you're not going to have to go back and take any stitches out. There's a fold under here again. Now we're going to work on the other side. So we're just going to flip it over where the pins are on the top. Make sure everything is out of the way on the other side. And you're going to start your needle right here. I would go a little bit above where that stitching ends. And you can actually feel the other side where you started up here. So it's about right there, and that's where I'm going to start. You want to lock all those stitches in together. And you can see that it's the same width as the other side. As far as the seam allowance is the same width. Now that you're finished sewing your gusset in, go to the ironing board and press it out. And what I did is I just ran my iron up this way, pressing the seam allowances out. Now I'm going to finish the edges. And if you don't have a serger, then you can just use a zigzag, which is what I'm using, and you'll just have to play with the width to decide what you want and the length of the stitches. Okay, what I forgot to tell you is, see these threads right here? You might want to trim those off before you do your zigzag. So I did this one side. Now you just flip it over and you do this side. I am not going to do that, but basically that's what you do. You just go along the edge and zigzag that so that you're not going to have threads coming off that. Now what we're going to do, and in the beginning I told you that you're going to need to open this up wide, you know, let the hem down further out so you can press all this down, and then you have a nice line that you can see where you're going to need to cut. So you're going to go from this edge here, where this hem is, and go straight across like this to that side. Now you can kind of see where the shirt wants to fold up here. So you're just going to do that here. Fold it up a little bit, trying to stay with the way your shirt is already folding up. And from here, I just put pins in it to hold it. Okay, and then we're just going to take it to the sewing machine and just pick up where your hem left off, and then straight stitch all the way down. Okay, this is what it looks like. This is your hem. And then at the top, I wanted to show you what it looked like on the sleeve. That's where you put the fabric in, where you had the little dot and you just met it up right there. That's what it looks like. So really super easy. Just take your time, and hope you guys have some good luck with that.